Greetings, fellow humans, and welcome to the book Wormhole, a pocket in reality where we take a break to focus on what's truly important in life, books. Last month, I participated in my first ever Readathon, and I had so much fun that I decided to participate in yet another this month, the Monster High Readathon. I love Monster High. I am a casual doll collector of Monster High, but while I knew this was a readathon last year, I didn't pay too much attention to it because I assumed it would be like read books with certain monsters in it, and I don't read too much fantasy. However, I was wrong, and instead the reading prompts are inspired by characters, and they're a lot more open to interpretation, which is awesome and leaves room for so many different genres and interpretations. This readathon was created by Claire DeWyko and will be hosted by her alongside Johara from The Witchy Reader. I will link both channels in the description below. And without further ado, let's dig into my highly ambitious TBR for next month. The first character is Twyla, who is the daughter of the boogeyman, and the first prompt is a book that lives in the shadows. Read an underrated book. For last month, I used this as an opportunity to read something self-published. I have a few options currently on my shelf, but I'm going to pick Time Bomb by R.M. Olsen for this category. This is the third book in her Ungovernable series, and it's been a while since I've made progress in this series, so I think it would be a good opportunity to read the next book. Signature colors. Read a book with blue and purple on the cover. I Want the Stars by Tom Purdom. The more I look at this cover, the more I think it's absolutely stunning. I'm also really interested in this one because it takes place in a true utopia where everyone's needs are already met, so it sounds like it's going to be a very positive story. Plus, the book came out in the 60s and has a black character, which is unheard of for the time. I also think it's queer. Don't judge a bat by its wings, which was a quote Twyla had said. I'll read a book based only on the synopsis. This is a hard category for me because I usually pick books based on recommendation. I actually rarely read a book synopsis, and I am guilty of judging a book by a cover. But the last time I bought a book based on synopsis was for a nonfiction read that will also apply to a later category. Femininity Played Straight, The Significance of Being Lesbian by Biddy Martin. And I will read the back synopsis for you. In Femininity Played Straight, Biddy Martin traces the changing relations of lesbianism and feminist theory from the late 1970s to the present. These sparkling essays argue for accounts of sexuality, gender, and subjectivity that make lesbianism intelligible and important, both for lesbians and non-lesbians alike. Moving between theoretical and autobiographical modes, Biddy Martin brings different kinds of writing to bear upon one another. At a theoretical level, her work takes issues with postmodern theory on questions of subjectivity, defending the continued validity of psychoanalytical thinking. She argues strongly for the use of critical modes that do not abandon the unconscious in seeking to understand the relations of subjectivity to language. In doing so, she addresses the work of writers, thinkers, and activists as varied as Mary Daly, Michelle Foucault, Adrienne Rich, Gail Rubin, Minnie Bruce Pratt, Sigmund Freud, Eve Koslowski-Sedgwick, Audre Lorde, Judith Butler, and Joanne Kobject. Femininity Played Straight puts lesbians in their place, a place that is part of society, culture, and critical discourse. I haven't read any queer history or queer theory books, and this one stood out to me, I think especially both as a feminist and a lesbian and how those two identities interact with each other. That's something I'm hoping this book will explore. This book is as old as I am, so there's a chance this might be a little outdated, but also I think it'll have some interesting ideas in it, even if I end up disagreeing with most of it. And the next character is Abbey, daughter of the abominable snowman, who is my favorite character based on personality. I also have 2 Abbeys in my collection, but I only brought down the original Abbey. Alright, The Truth Hurts, a book you are intimidated to read. This tiny book is the scariest book on my shelf. For this category, I looked through books I have started reading but stopped. I don't really DNF books usually, but sometimes I start reading something and I'm not feeling it at the moment, so I'll put it aside for a little bit. Of the ones I put aside, The Ticket That Exploded by William Burroughs is the most intimidating. Burroughs has a very distinct writing style. I only got a few pages in, as you can see. I still have my bookmark in it before I decided to put this one aside. Pretty much it's very poetic, but in a prose style, so sentences will be really long without punctuation, and that's difficult for me to follow. When I was given this book, I was warned that this is a very hard introduction to Burroughs, and I should probably read something else by him first. I still haven't read anything else by Burroughs, but if I'm gonna be honest about what book is the most intimidating to read, this is the one. Ice Powers, a book set in the winter or a book with snow on the cover. Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. I'm assuming from the title this takes place on an ice planet, but I'm honestly not sure. All I know is that it's an arranged marriage and that it's gay. I do have a backup book for this category in case winter isn't actually an ice planet, but I'll be mentioning it for a later category. Himalayan Yaks, a book with an animal. This book I had to fit in somewhere on this month's TBR because I think it's just a perfect read for October. Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. This is a Scooby-Doo retelling, so obviously a dog is going to be a part of the main cast of characters. It's also got a side of Cthulhu, which I'm not really a Lovecraft fan, but it sounds like it's going to be fun and a spooky read for Halloween. Next we have Claude, son of the Werewolf. And the first category is Werewolf. Read a book where a character has to go through a major transformation. Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie. From what I understand about the plot, the main character was a ship's AI who ends up transferred into a human's body. And this one, I know for sure takes place on an ice planet, so it's my backup for the ice category as well. Vampires and Werewolves. Read an Enemies to Lovers. Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I'm pretty sure main characters Gideon and Harrow hate each other at the start, but I do know they end up being love interests by the end. And I'm a sucker for enemies to lovers tropes. I feel like I read a lot of that trope, but also space sword lesbian sounds really cool. Casketball. Read a book with sports in it. She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quinlan. This one looks so cute. It's about a basketball player and a cheerleader, so double sports. I also think it's enemies to lovers as well. Now we're on to Deuce, son of Medusa. Greece. Read a book set in an exotic world. I read a lot of sci-fi, so I think most of these books also apply to this category, but I will choose Istis by S.Z. Atwell, which imagines Earth in the future where global warming has forced society to move underground. This is also a self-published work, so it would count for the underrated category as well. Turn to Stone. Read a book that is 400 plus pages. Do You Dream of Terror 2 by Temi O. Obviously, it makes the page count, but also BookTube has gotten me so hyped for this book, so I really just want to read it sooner than later. Medusa. Read a book with green on the cover. Sybil Sue Blue by Rosal George Brown. Not only is this cover gorgeous, this book was originally released in 1966, and I just love reading old science fiction that was so ahead of its time. Obviously, having a strong female main character in the 60s was unheard of, so I'm very interested in this book. And last but not least, Ghoulia. Smartest Ghoul in School. Read a book that taught you something. I have a lot of nonfiction to choose from. I love reading nonfiction books to get ideas for my own writing, but also because sometimes it's just fun to learn something new. I mentioned femininity played straight before, which would apply to this category, but because I had a hard time of narrowing down choices, I'm going to pick a second that is applicable to this category. Before the Fallout, from Kuri to Hiroshima by Diana Preston. I'm really fascinated while equally horrified by radiation. Last year I read Radium Girls by Kate Moore, which was about the women who worked as dial painters using paint with radium, and the people in charge knew radium was dangerous, but they didn't tell these young girls about the dangers of it, and many of them died really horrific deaths from exposure to radium. Like, there's a Netflix version of the story, but it's so boiled down, and as well as it really doesn't get into as gruesome as the reality was. It literally deformed and incapacitated these women if they didn't quickly die from it. It sounds like some horrific creation out of a science fiction, but it's reality. So with this read, I'm excited to explore the entire history of radiation and radioactive materials, as the title says, from Marie Curie discovering radium to the deployment of an atomic bomb on the civilian city of Hiroshima. Zombie Speed, read a book that is slow-paced but still entertaining. For this one, I chose 2001: A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke. This is an assumption based off of the movie, since the movie is very slow-paced but still just really beautiful. So if it's anything like the movie, this book is perfect for this category. Deadfast, read a comic/graphic novel. I have a handful of graphic novels on my TBR I need to get to, but for this one I am choosing Maggie the Mechanic, a Love and Rockets book, which my girlfriend lent me, and she really likes this series, so I want to read it. So that's my TBR for this upcoming month. Let me know if you'll be participating in the Monster High Readathon, or if you're reading any of the books mentioned. We should do a buddy read. Thanks for watching, and please stay tuned.